Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Michael Conway of Renaissance, and we're delighted to be joined today by Michael Simpson of Lookout. He's a senior sales engineer within Lookout. And today, on today's session, what we want to do is we want to cover mobile security in the age of NIS2, the risks, the mandates, and the roles of mobile EDR. A bit of a mouthful, but what we want to try to do is to discuss the whole area of mobile security and how that's impacted, if you like, in terms of compliance regulation NIS2, which is upon us at the moment. There's a couple of just quick housekeeping things I'd like to go through in relation to today's session. All attendees are muted for the session, but you will be unmuted for the Q&A portion. The session is being recorded. Unfortunately, there are a few people who are unable to attend and they'd like to have the session available to them afterwards. And indeed, the session will be made available to everybody who does attend. So if they wish to share it internally or with any colleagues or peers, please feel free to do so. But we want to make this as interactive as possible so that you get out of this what you want. So please enter any questions into chat or send them directly to myself or raise them into the Q&A. But at any point, raise any questions, any queries, any points that you want to make. Please raise them so that we can address them later on, because the most important part here is that we don't just talk to ourselves, we talk to the issues and challenges that you guys have and the things that you'd like to hear about. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to Michael for the most important part, and I'll join you then again at the Q&A. Thank you.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks for the introduction, and thank you all for attending today as well. So we are going to be trying to squeeze this in 30 minutes today, and we will be going quite fast, but we do have a document you could probably see scrolling through on the screen at the minute, which we're happy to issue after the call. So you can go through the relevant NIS2 requirements, what it means for mobile, and how you can meet those requirements with a mobile EDR in your own time. But we are effectively going to be splitting this session into two today. We're going to be looking at the core NIS2 Directive requirements, and then we're going to be looking at what that means for Ireland, for organisations within Ireland, and how it looks for Ireland NCSC to be implementing those measures. So just a little bit of an introduction about Lookout and why we're talking about mobile security today. Lookout have been a pure play mobile security vendor since 2007. We've had the opportunity to be installed on over 235 million devices, analyze over just under 400 million applications, and we use that telemetry in order to be able to identify the threat landscape, help organizations sell that intelligence to sort of governments and intelligence agencies, as well as secure our enterprise customers. We're going to be looking at some of those protections today as we go through the slides. So let's focus a little bit on NIS2. I'm sure we're all about the NIS2 Directive, and it's simply an update from the initial NIS Directive in order to reflect the ever-changing mobile the threat landscape, as well as the mobile threat landscape as well. Now, a lot of organizations we're speaking to at the minute are really questioning, are mobile devices in scope? There's a couple of requirements in there about secure communication, and people always jump straight to those requirements when they're thinking about mobile devices. But the NIS2 Directive definitions are very, very clear about what is in scope and what is not in scope. And effectively, any device that can process corporate information, has access to corporate information, is in scope. So ask yourself, does our organization rely on mobile devices to be able to be operational? Can our users access our corporate information from their issued devices as well as their personal devices? Do we rely on mobile devices to be able to function? If the answer is yes to any of those, yes, mobile devices are absolutely in. And the requirements that apply to your laptops, your desktops, your networks equally apply to mobile devices that are included in scope as well. So talking about scope, I'm not going to go through every single organization that's covered, but the NIS2 Directive now effectively splits organizations into two different buckets. You've got your essential entities, which tend to be your larger than medium-sized entities, and we're looking at sort of critical national infrastructure and digital services. And then you've got your important entities, which tend to be around medium sort of size and not quite as critical organizations, but still very much important. What I really want to focus on in this particular slide is the supervision aspects. So essential entities are subject to both regular auditing and targeting auditing. And you can see there the difference with ex ante and ex post as well. There doesn't need to be any reason for an essential entity to be investigated, to be audited, to have scans run on that organization. It could be at any time. Whereas important entities, it's more focused on after there is evidence. There's been some sort of attack. There's been an attack on another organization. There's potential for an attack on that particular organization. So you can see that it's more targeted auditing there. If you look at the punitive actions, there's a set of punitive actions there across the top which apply equally to both organisations. You notice the ones with the asterisks there. If those punitive actions aren't enough for an essential entity, you can see at the bottom there we've got the additional measures for essential entities. Take away a certification or target a board member, effectively asking that board member to cease their managerial roles. So we can see that there is not only the financial implication, you've also got the personal implication of these punitive actions as well. And then, of course, the financial implications, as well as those minor punitive actions, there is potential for a large financial punitive action as well. Now, the EU NIS2 Directive doesn't require organisations to comply with the directive directly. What it requires to do is the member states of the nation member states to actually apply the NIS2 Directive into their own legislation, into their own frameworks, into their own recommendations. We've got a couple on the screen there. But today we're going to be focused on the Ireland implementation, the National Cybersecurity Bill, which is currently in draft. And by default, by proxy, we're also going to be looking at the Belgian NIS2 law as well. We'll clarify that in a second. Now, the NIS2 directive effectively breaks down into a number of different articles, but we're only going to be focused on 3 articles today, which are sort of the key ones which organisations within inside a member state need to be focused on. The first one being Article 20, which is governance. This is really around each organisation putting a board into place who is educated and responsible for putting the mitigations and understanding NIS2 across their organisation. Why is that relevant for mobile? Well, if you aren't aware of the risks at mobile, how are you going to put in remediative actions? How are you going to be able to put in the framework that you need to give you complete coverage, not just across your traditional fleet, but also looking at your mobile fleet as well? Now, for organizations that already run a mobile EDR solution, you'll be aware that you now get visibility of executive impersonation attacks through mobile, social engineering, reconnaissance, initial access. Without that visibility, you're not really aware of the risks. You can't protect what you can't see. And to put that into perspective, I'm just chucking a couple of stats up on the board that Lookout has seen across its enterprise customers in 2024 alone. So in 2024, we detected and blocked 38 million dangerous websites through mobile devices. That's websites that could lead to executive impersonation attacks, social engineering, reconnaissance, phishing, C2 communications for malware on those devices. And whilst talking about malware, across those enterprise devices, so these are all organizations similar to yourselves, we saw 427,000 examples of malware. Now, if you were discovering malware inside your servers, your desktops, and your laptops, you're going to have some sort of mechanism in place to be able to remediate that. Start thinking about that from a mobile perspective as well. The same goes for those 1.6 million vulnerable applications. And these 2 directives look at vulnerabilities within inside a fleet as much as they look at malware and malicious activity. And that also then brings us nicely onto operating systems. There's a strong focus on vulnerability and patch management. And we saw that 29.5% of devices had vulnerable operating systems, which could have been updated that weren't updated. So just a few key statistics there as to why mobile is now included within some EU NIS2 directive and various other frameworks around the world. If we focus on Article 21 now, the cybersecurity risk management, this is really the sort of meat and bones of the NIS2 directive. This is all around being able to do risk management, being able to put in cybersecurity solutions so you can mitigate those risks, being able to look at your supply chain security, being able to do reporting and incident response. Now, as we've seen previously, there are just as many as attack vectors, TTPs on mobile, as there are across your traditional fleet. So mobile devices are absolutely in scope. Think about the mobile devices you've got inside your organization. Firstly, you've got users needing to use this for multi-factor authentication. This is the key to your kingdom now. So do you want insecure devices providing that capability? Do you have devices on the shop floor, on the manufacturing plant floor that are critical to your manufacturing process? Do you have point of sale terminals out inside your shops, for example, that are critical to users being able to make payments through to your organization? What would be the impact of your mobile devices being targeted? And of course, a mobile EDR solution not only gives you the ability to see what's going on those mobile endpoints, recognize the early stages of an attack, such as social engineering, reconnaissance, but also then initial access and then onto the rest of the attack chain. But it's being able to provide the capabilities to mitigate those risks, to be able to educate those users, to be able to enforce some sort of patch vulnerability and conditional access management on those mobile devices, just like you do for the rest of your fleet. And then, of course, provide all that intelligence and your telemetry to your security operations team so you can respond to those incidents in the same manner you'd respond to any other incident as well. A little bit of a focus on that, you're probably doing a lot of the stuff Article 21 already requires for your desktops, your laptops, your networks, your SaaS applications. If it asks you to do URL filtering, blocking access to malicious websites, blocking access to phishing sites, detecting phishing attacks in emails, you're going to already have some sort of firewall solution on your network perimeter. You're probably going to have some sort of proxy solution on your endpoints. You're going to have an email filtering system to be able to detect malware inside emails and phishing within emails as well. If you're looking at the vulnerabilities across your fleet, whether it's the firmware inside your routers, it's looking at your IoT devices you've got on your fleet. You're going to have some sort of vulnerability and patch management system that's able to identify when a device is out of date, when there are high risk CVEs or critical risk CVEs, and enforce some sort of patching on those devices. The same goes for your investigation reporting capabilities. You've probably invested millions in a security operations team. You've invested millions in a CM or a source solution that can allow your security team to see the incidents and the events as they're unfolding, being able to identify attacks at the early stages and then put some sort of manual or automatic playbook into place and allow your security team to shut down that incident long before it becomes a significant incident and you have to start reporting about thinking about that reporting capability up to your CISA, up to the EU, and the various sort of reporting mechanisms that they've got in there. So why aren't you extending exactly the same capability down to the mobile devices? These mobile devices are the keys to your kingdom. They have access to the same levels of corporate information. They have the same capabilities for data exfiltration. And these are highly connected devices. They're either constantly connected to a mobile network, a Wi-Fi network. There's multiple ways to get in touch with them. They've got phone numbers, they've got emails, they've got social media. So why not extend exactly the same levels of security to those mobile devices as well? The exact reason why NIS2 has brought mobile into scope. And talking about reporting, Article 23 is really focused on there's been a significant incident. You need to be able to start reporting that significant incident. And it's not just focused on you being able to report that internally. It's about you being able to report that up to your member state, the island NCSC, so that they can deploy sort of member state or country-wide protections, as well as them reporting up to the EU so that they can do EU-wide protections as well. And this is key when we start to look at some of the sort of modern attack chains we've seen in recent incidents. If we look at the attack on the aviation industry, the insurance industry, the retail industry, once attackers started attacking one organization, they were very quickly spread into multiple organizations. So having that reporting capability is allowing the member state to be able to start shutting down those attacks much quicker. Now, of course, on mobile, if you think right now about your corporate mobile devices, what reporting capabilities do you currently have? Could you tell if your mobile devices were impacted? If you were to shut down the incident and the rest of your fleet, could you tell whether there's persistence or foothold in your mobile devices still? Does the attacker still have initial access? Does the attacker have malware on a device? Are they leveraging a watering hole attack, for example, and redirecting mobile devices to a specific website which take advantage of a vulnerability on those devices? So can you do any reporting left of the boom, as we call it, left of boom, being able to look at social engineering, reconnaissance, and initial access? Now, the reporting requirements required by NIS2 first start with early reporting in the first 24 hours. And that's the first 24 hours of a significant incident. You as an organization, wouldn't you much rather have reporting as early on in the attack chain so it doesn't become a significant incident? So if you could identify, for example, 10 of your users on their mobile devices have all just received a text message which is executive impersonation pretending to be your IT help desk. Report that into the security team, lock that down as soon as possible. It doesn't become a significant incident. You don't need to necessarily report that up to your NCSC. But of course, if there is a significant incident, you need to start reporting within the first 24 hours up to NCSC. Within 72 hours, being able to determine the severity, the impact, and provide indicators of compromise if you can. Again, if you think back to your current mobile devices, could you tell what the impact is on that mobile fleet? Or do you just have to say to them, I'm sorry, we've got no way of scanning our mobile devices. We don't know if they're exploited. We don't know if they're compromised. We don't know if there's malware out there. We don't know if somebody is leveraging credential harvesting attack on our mobile devices, for example. Also, we can't tell you if there's any indicators of compromise. We couldn't tell you if there's any malicious file hashes out there. We couldn't tell you if there's any devices that are accessing malicious domains that we could provide to you as an indicator of compromise. And you can start blocking that on your firewall, your proxies across the organization. You then need to be providing further reporting and further evidence upon CSIRT request and within 1 month and then continuously as well. So are you able to carry out an investigation that looks left of boom, that looks before the initial access, and determine exactly what stages the attacker took to do social engineering, reconnaissance, and then initial access, and being able to shut down that incident from ongoing any further and potentially block it across other organizations in the member state as well. So that was a look at the NIS2 directive requirements, which the member state are required to transpose into legislation. We're now going to take a look at how Ireland is transposing this into legislation. And actually, Ireland are a little bit behind the curve at the minute. They were meant to transpose by October last year. Not quite done at the minute, but they are making progress. If you go to the Ireland NCSC NIS2 site at the minute, you'll see on there that they've got the NIS2 risk management measures in draft, which is a set of guidelines how to manage risk management. It very, very closely aligns with the NIS2 directive wording. And then you've got the Belgium Cyber Fundamentals or CyFun framework. So Ireland has decided to adopt the CyFun framework as a mechanism to be able to apply some sort of certification or framework for organizations to follow. I've taken a direct extract from the NCSC website, essentially detailing that CyFun is going to be used ongoing as some sort of framework for organizations to be able to follow to get a basic fundamental level of capability that aligns with the NIS2 directive. In the next couple of years, there is going to be a certification process for that as well. So it's not saying that you as an organization are absolutely in line with NIS2 directive by doing CyFun, but it's a very good start. And as you can see on the right-hand side, the CyFun framework closely aligns with the NIS2 CSF framework as well. So what I've decided to do is just pull out a couple of the core requirements out of the CyFun framework. You can go online, you can download the framework. It's a nice big spreadsheet, lots of different requirements in there which give you sort of a pass-fail criteria. But if we take a look at some of the core requirements in there, you'll notice that it immediately calls out having some sort of anti-malware capability. And as you can see in bold there, it requires you to include that on smartphone devices. So having an anti-malware, antivirus capability on mobile devices. You should also have the capability to be able to potentially deploy this to personal devices as well as including BYO devices. So effectively, any unmanaged device or any non-corporate device that has access to corporate data and information and processes. It also then goes on to detailing firewalls, so being able to have some sort of URL filtering capability to be able to detect malware, block phishing attacks, block malicious C2 communications. And as you can see, it adds in there, consider where feasible, including smartphones. So having a URL filtering capability down on your mobile devices as well. And that strongly aligns with the mobile threat landscape and what we've seen over the past 18 years. If we work from right to left here, looking at the various mobile threat vectors, network, device, we're sure we're all familiar with them. We've got endpoint protection solutions down on our desktops and laptops and servers, making sure those devices are connected to legitimate networks. There's no man-in-the-middle attack taking place. Those devices aren't compromised. There's been no changes to the administrator privileges, the file system, the operating system, the kernel, and ensuring that those devices are fully patched and are not compromised. Exactly the same threats apply to mobile devices, both iOS and Android. When we're looking at the application threat vector, of course, we're looking at anything that could be deemed malware. And there's both app and appless-based malware for both iOS and Android, thousands of different malware families across millions of different samples that we currently have inside our threat intel corpus. We're also looking at risky applications, so apps that you wouldn't perhaps want in your fleet and you want to deny list. And we're also looking at vulnerable applications in there as well. So can you currently identify, for example, which applications in your fleet have the vulnerable version of WhatsApp that was released, or the vulnerability was identified last week? Can you identify that, patch that, and mitigate that risk? Web and content, of course, anything that we deem to be your device accessing phishing sites, malicious sites, C2 communications with the malware network, for example, or even sites that you deem to be dangerous or unauthorized. Now, we see this a lot with mobile devices, with users scanning QR codes, clicking on links in social media. You've got your links coming in all your messaging applications on your mobile devices, SMS, WhatsApp, Teams, Google Chat, all those different types of communication, which just are not being covered by your existing perimeter firewalls. And then finally, one of the latest threat vectors, which is prolific in a lot of the modern attack chain type attacks we're seeing at the minute, social engineering. The attacker communicating with your victims or their victims, they don't necessarily have malicious links in the messages. They don't necessarily have malicious files that are being pushed down to the mobile devices. It's simply communication. Looking at the intent of the message, is the attacker communicating with some sort of urgency? Is it asking the user to do something that you wouldn't normally ask them to do? Are they pretending to be a member of your executive team or perhaps a member of your IT help desk? The IT help desk scam works both ways. Both the attacker targeting your IT help desk, pretending to be a user. There's a strong chance they've done some sort of reconnaissance and social engineering through mobile to get enough intel about that user so they can pretend to be them. And it also works the same way with the attacker pretending to be your IT help desk, communicating with the user through their mobile device, saying your account is currently unsecure, it's under attack, we're seeing a lot of events here, please reset your password, we're going to call you in 2 seconds just to help you through that process. So we're really expecting a lot of the frameworks that are coming out to be updated to be cognizant of the social engineering threat vector, as well as the sort of traditional file-based, network-based attacks. So what we're going to do for the next 5 minutes is just take a look at some of the requirements that are in the CyFun, the Cyber Fundamentals framework that Ireland is planning to put in place as part of the compliance or meeting those NIS2 Directive requirements. What you'll notice is they've actually nicely segmented the requirements into the 6 different pillars that align with the NIS2 CSF. So for anybody that is following the NIST cybersecurity framework, you're going to have this new CyFun framework closely aligning with that. If we look at the identify pillar, we can see immediately that they're asking you to be able to carry out an inventory of all of your mobile devices. Now, you could probably meet this with an MDM, a mobile device management solution. But bear in mind that it's also requiring you to have inventory for personal devices that also have access to corporate resources. So A managed device will be in your inventory. Potentially, unmanaged devices might not be in your inventory. We can see that it's looking at the fact that you need to have the ability to detect unauthorized firmware. So firmware that is not legitimate, is not official. You need to be able to do inventory of your software. And if I was doing inventory of my software, I'd also be looking at the risks, the capabilities, the permissions, the communication types, and the insecurities with those softwares as well. Being able to look at threats and vulnerabilities and identify those threats and vulnerabilities on your mobile devices as much as you can on the rest of your fleet. If you look at mobile device management systems, mobile application management systems, they do not detect threats, they do not detect vulnerabilities. If you are running a solution like Intune, for example, for MDM or MAM, if you take a look at Microsoft's own documentation, they'll actually detail in there, you need to deploy a mobile threat defense solution to be able to identify threats and vulnerabilities. Take a look at the protect pillar. They're first calling out the fact that you should be deploying MFA. As soon as you start deploying MFA, you are probably putting one of these in your users' hands so they can use a mobile device to provide that MFA. Whether it's a passkey, whether it's an authentication application, whether it's an OTP through SMS, for example. It's detailing that you should be deploying the firewalls, that URL filtering capability we talked about earlier, and these explicitly call out smartphones. So being able to detect malicious sites, phishing sites on your smartphone devices and report that back into your security team. Automated tools to be able to provide notification both to your security team and down to the user as well. Being able to protect against vulnerabilities and being able to prevent users from accessing malicious websites. That very sort of last requirement there. Quickly onto the detect pillar. So this is where the meat of it comes in from sort of an endpoint detection and response capability, having antivirus, having an anti-spyware capability down on your mobile devices, being able to analyze detected events. So presenting event information up to your security team so they can analyze the event. What was the risk? How did we mitigate it? Has it been mitigated? Are there any indicators of compromise? Do we need to do something with this? Do we need to put another playbook into action? Is this a significant incident? Do we need to report this up? You need to be able to analyze the events. You need to be able to automate those mechanisms. So you can't rely on users saying, I've just received an SMS. It's got a phishing link in it. I'm going to report it up to my security operations center. It requires automated mechanisms to be able to speed up that process and ensure you've got the technical guardrails in place, which means your users don't actually need to be doing that reporting. The technical guardrails are securing them and your organization. And then finally, we're going to take a look at the respond pillar. So there has been some sort of incident, there's been an attack, and mobile may not be included just now, but how are we going to respond? If we've identified the attack on our network, we're seeing the malicious indicators of compromise, we know which domains that malware is using, we're going to lock it down on the firewall. We're going to lock it down in the proxy. We're going to create a block list. What about our mobile devices? Can they still communicate with those dangerous C2 websites, for example? So what capability do you have to respond on your mobile devices? If there's malware on there, can we remove that malware? If there's vulnerabilities on there, can we enforce a patching mechanism? And that's really where the respond pillar comes in. Having automated mechanisms to support that incident impact, being able to do analysis and containment. So if we do detect malware on a mobile device, for example, can you contain that mobile device? Can you quarantine it? Can you isolate it from your network? Think about how you would automatically do that with your existing mobile devices in your fleet right now. And that's exactly where mobile EDR comes in. And that's exactly what Lookout has been doing since 2007. Being able to detect risks on the mobile device, being able to put in some sort of conditional access, some sort of containment or quarantine, providing a mechanism for your users to be able to remediate those issues so you don't have overheads on your administrators or your partners. And we typically see 95% of incidents are remediated by users within 5 minutes. It's about being able to use the platform to enforce automated technical guardrails, as well as educating your users on a continuous basis as they're meeting risks. And that's across all the threat vectors: the web and content, network, social engineering, device, and then malware and applications. As part of our partnership with Renaissance, we do offer a free trial. So please reach out to Renaissance to get access to your own independent trial tenant, sign on some of your devices, carry out a scan of your environment, and actually trial the functions and capabilities and see how it works inside your organization. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Michael, any questions?
So, Michael, thank you very much for that. I'll let you get a glass of water. It was a fantastic whistle-stop tour through NIS2 and all that's mobile and associated with it. And to be honest with you, I think it was from my side really, really clear and very, very concise and everything else. And I think it covered a huge amount. I've had a couple of questions come to me, but just reminder to everybody, please, if you have any questions, put them up there into Q&A or into chat, and let's address them, because the most important thing for us is that you get out of this what you want. Question here that came in here is if we're required to cover corporate devices and BYO devices, how can we deal with user privacy issues? How do you handle that aspect?
Yeah, we hear this question all the time. Lookout actually started life as a personal consumer app, first of all. So back in the days when you could download it from the Google Play Store, Apple App Store, privacy was key, right? People wouldn't install an agent on their device. And we still see this problem now, even in large enterprise organizations. The solution's been designed from the ground up with privacy in mind. So your administrator does need to know that they've blocked a phishing attack, or does need to know that we've detected malware. They don't need to know what application it's on. They don't need to know what websites you're visiting. So we never allow the administrators to see the websites you're visiting, the applications installed on your device, any sensitive information. And even look at ourselves, we don't take any sensitive information off that device. We don't need your phone number. We don't need your files and photos. We don't need your IMEI, that kind of stuff. So yeah, privacy is one of the default features of the product.
Yeah, so the user's privacy is fully protected all of the time,
Yeah,
no matter
absolutely.
what. Yeah.
And we even tell the user in the app what the admins can and cannot see, just so they're really reassured.
Yeah, because people don't always trust everybody. But moving on, another question here, and I think I've heard this type of question before, but just we only have iPhones in our organizations. Aren't iOS devices already secure?
Yeah, I mean, great marketing by Apple. If it was so secure, they wouldn't have brought out lockdown mode a couple of years ago. If you look at any of the sort of significant incidents that involve commercial spyware vendors, if they look at nation state sponsored attacks, they're generally targeting iOS devices. In fact, during our 2024 telemetry report, we saw twice as many phishing attacks on iOS devices as we did on Android devices, because organizations take out iOS devices. So attackers tend to target iOS devices. But iOS is just as susceptible to phishing attacks, social engineering attacks, network-based attacks, device compromise. Yes, their app ecosystem is a little bit more protected than Android, but we still see plenty of malware samples. And if you think back to any of the significant attacks for sort of like Predator, Pegasus, that kind of stuff, you'll see they're targeting iOS devices, not Android devices.
It's always a religious sort of conversation when you talk about Android versus iOS.
Yeah, I mean, the capability to receive a dodgy SMS or scan a dodgy QR code is just as prevalent in iOS as it is in Android.
Perfect. A question in here in the Q&A. Does the solution integrate with any other MDR solutions like Microsoft tools?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole host of ecosystems that we integrate with, whether it is MDMs, mobile application management systems, Sentinel, Defender, you sort of all your SIEMs and your SOARs. One of the fundamental practices that we really drill home when we deploy a solution is it's kind of set and forget. You deploy it, you configure it, and then you manage it all in the rest of your security tooling. You don't need to come back to our portal to deal with it. You let Intune do your conditional access based on the telemetry we give them. You allow Defender or Sentinel to be your dashboard in your playbook and use the bi-directional APIs that we've got. So yeah, it's got rich integration. We can stand alone if you want to, because not every organization has an MDM. But if you've got an MDM or you've got MAM, you get far more functionality. You get zero-click deployment. You get bi-directional telemetry. Yeah, there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, no, I think again, Microsoft is prolific in the Irish marketplace, and that's for sure. There was a question there, and just in relation to sharing deck, etc. I think the important thing here is that the whole presentation, the whole session has been recorded, and that will be made available to everybody, so you can get the data again anyway. You can get all the slides. We'll come back in relation to the opportunity to share the decks with the attendees, but the session is being recorded anyway. So question here is, I'm not sure if it's a question or a statement. What about Microsoft Intune on mobile?
Yeah, so Microsoft Intune is fantastic in mobile device management. We integrate with that and many others, Workspace ONEs, Avantis, that type of stuff. As a standalone product, Microsoft Intune doesn't detect threats. It's great for configuration. It's great for management of a device, but it doesn't look at the traffic going in and out. So it can't identify malicious websites, phishing websites, for example. It doesn't look at the messages, so it can't detect social engineering. Whilst it does an inventory of the applications, it can't look for malware, it can't look for risks, it doesn't know any of the capabilities of those applications. Microsoft as an MDM tool, or Intune as an MDM tool, also doesn't look at networks, so it can't tell you whether you're connected to an insecure network, there's an SSL attack taking place or not. So you might have locked down that device, but the users can still visit websites, they can still receive text messages, they can still enter the credentials into a phishing website, for example. So for that reason, that's why Microsoft provide an integration into our platform, so we can do the threat detection, they can do the configuration, and we pass all our telemetry to Microsoft so they can do conditional access.
Okay, and questions are starting to come in thick and fast then. Question here is that by virtue of your solution holding and processing /processing device data through APIs, etc., what are your security credentials?
Yeah, so I mean, we're installed across many government organizations globally. We are a US-based organization. We do have FedRAMP approval, which is sort of the highest levels we need for the US government. We've got the SOC approvals we need, Cyber Essentials. So it is a SaaS-based solution that has all the sort of credentials that you required. And we are continuously, obviously, carrying out security assessments for our customers. But we are across some of the largest customers in the world. I mean, if we take a look at Airbus, for example, there are 1,000 plus devices globally. We work with inside banks, we work inside government organizations. So I'd be more than happy to provide those credentials if needed.
And it's like it is global. So Lookout is a global company providing these sort of capabilities globally throughout all sorts of jurisdictions. Just a question here: if the administrators can't see the information about any of the sites, apps, attacks, etc., how can the admins be sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do?
In the same way you can any endpoint protection solution, right? Having that reassurance, having that testing. We always recommend having regular testing anyway. But the administrator will see when there's an issue. So they won't see the sensitive information. So you're not going to be able to see continuously all the websites that your users are browsing to, for example. You won't be able to see all the applications the users have on their individual devices, because you can see data and applications, that type of stuff. But if there is an issue, it's going to ping up to the user, it's going to ping up to the administrator. We're going to say, we've just seen a phishing attack, we've just blocked this phishing attack. We've just seen this malware on a device. The malware is still there. The user hasn't done anything about it. This is the malware family. This is the malware strain. This is what it means to your organization. You choose whether you let the user remediate it and you have conditional access, or the admin does it. So we're providing all those triggers, we're providing all those alerts to your admins through our console, through the APIs, and onto your security operations center as well. So you are getting notification that the system is working. You're just not getting to see that sensitive information, which is going to start freaking your users out.
Okay. And a question here is the issue we've always faced with mobiles is getting users to install software. Any solutions would have to be manageable, like our laptops and desktops. How can we achieve this?
Yeah, good question. If your devices are managed, that's fairly simple, right? If they're enrolled in an MDM, our agent gets pushed down automatically, configured automatically. The user doesn't need to do anything. It's a silent deployment. And that device is now secure. It starts reporting telemetry back, and it's just another anti-malware capability on another corporate device. The users wouldn't question an endpoint protection on their laptops, desktops, would they? So why would they question it on a managed corporate device? If it's an unmanaged device, there's a couple of different mechanisms we typically use. The first being conditional access. User picks up an unmanaged device. They try to log into one of your corporate applications using your corporate credentials. And your identity provider, with integration with Lookout, effectively says, no, you can't get access to this Teams or this SharePoint or this Outlook until you've installed Lookout. The user installs Lookout, quick, next, next, next. If the device is green, as you can see on the screen there, no issues found, they get access to your corporate resources. If the device has seen an issue, there's malware on there, it's connected to a dodgy network, we block access to those corporate resources. So that's really a forced activation, forcing your users to install Lookout on the unmanaged devices so that they can get access to your corporate resources. Microsoft called this MAM, Mobile Application Management, or it's configured in Intune with application protection policies, but you can do it across lots of different platforms through lots of different mechanisms. And then you can have the optional enrollment route where you send emails out to everybody with unique enrollment codes, and then they download it and then they install it on their device. If they don't download it and install it, you can see exactly who has installed and who hasn't installed. So a couple of different mechanisms.
Okay, so it's whatever's appropriate to your organization.
Yeah.
A question here is, what's the general turnaround time from purchase to full deployment and active protection? I'd love to hear an answer for. I'm sure it depends.
Yeah, no, I mean I love this answer. So we can have you a tenant, or Renaissance can have you a tenant up and running within 24 hours. It's default out of the box secure. So that means all the policies are at a baseline that we believe are appropriate for an organization. Deployment can be as simple as, let's say this trial, for example, you can have 25 users onboarded within a couple of minutes. It is as simple as sending out an email, the person downloads it from the Google Play Store, they authenticate, and off they go. If we're integrating with an MDM for that seamless deployment we were talking about, you can have an MDM integrated within 10 minutes. It's very, very simple off-the-shelf connectors. If we look at an organization of, let's say, 100 devices, we generally recommend you do a bit of a pilot phase. So you do your 30 days pilot, you figure out exactly how you want to have your policies configured, what the onboarding process looks like. We have a communication plan that you issue. So maybe 4 weeks before main rollout, this is what we're going to be doing. 3 weeks before, this is how we're protecting our devices. 2 weeks before, this is what you're going to see during onboarding. But ultimately, you could have an organization onboarded, including that proof of concept time, within a month, not a problem. We see large organizations of sort of 5,000 upwards deploying 1,000 devices a day. Even large organizations such as Airbus, they tend to deploy sort of in tranches of 5,000 at a time. So they'll use user groups and say, right, that's 5,000 deployed, that's 5,000 deployed, and that's done on a daily basis. But in reality, you can go as quick or as slow as you want.
Okay, so it's up to yourselves.
Yeah.
Question here, just have people become more casual generally about the mobile threat over time, or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, the threat has always been there, right? We started back in 2007 when we saw an exploit in Bluetooth being a vulnerability in Bluetooth being exploited. Attackers know now that mobile devices are unsecured. If you think about your security you've currently got, they're probably not secured. Why would an attacker try and target a secured network or an endpoint product? We used to freak out about endpoint protection on laptops. We're now absolutely fine with it. Mobile is just catching up to that now. So now attackers are going, well, I can hit this mobile because it's unsecured. I can get it through a website, I can get it through an SMS, I can get it through a QR code, I can get it through malware. There are so many different attack vectors. And the problem we're finding at the minute is really education. Organizations aren't familiar with the attack vectors. They're not familiar how attackers are using mobile devices. So doing sessions like this and doing education is absolutely key. And then being able to get an organization to look internally and say, well, is there any critical information on our mobile devices? Can our mobile devices access the same systems that our laptops and desktops can? If so, the risk is as equal as it is for the rest of our fleet.
And the reality these days is mobile devices can access everything anything else can. Um,
Pretty much, pretty much.
um, I don't have any more open questions, but what I would absolutely say to any of the attendees at this session is, please take the opportunity to download that free trial. It's a 60-day free trial up to 25 devices. And you know what's the worst that can happen by trying that? You'll find out where you are and get some sort of get an idea in terms of the things that Lookout can do for you. Obviously, NIS2 is a directive. Obviously, the different stages in terms of where legislation are and everything else. But at the end of the day, people need to be secure. So it shouldn't not necessarily have to wait for a regulation, someone to say, listen, this is what you have to do or whatever. These are the right sort of things to do, and it makes huge sense. So I would say to anybody, please avail of the 60-day free trial. Contact any of the Renaissance team or the Lookout team indeed to kick that off. That's absolutely no problem. The session, as I say, has been recorded, so will be made available so you can look at this. And I would suggest that if you have any peers or colleagues within your organizations that you'd like to actually get this information to and have this sort of conversation with and say this is something they should look at is take this recording, get it to them, and then take it from there. But please, as I say, reach out to any of the Renaissance team or Lookout team at any stage, and we can get you more information. You can organise the free trial from you. We can drive things forward. So thank you very much. And Michael, thank you very much. That was really, really informative.
Not a problem. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.